back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens and this is English Nerd. So today I wanted to talk to you about how to find time to write. If you talk to a lot of people, they say, oh yeah, I would love to write a book, or I've started writing a book, it's just I don't have any time. So the first thing I want to say about that is that in my experience, life is so much about priorities. If you prioritize something, then you will find the time for it. If you prioritize certain relationships, you'll make that time. If you prioritize, different shows or travel or whatever it may be, then you will find the time for that. Writing is no different. Now, I understand that our lives can get extremely busy, trust me, I know. So here are a couple of things that I would recommend to help you find that time to write if it's something that you really want to do. So personally, I tend to write early in the morning. I don't like getting up and then running out the door. Instead, I like to have some time to sit and have my cup of coffee and check Instagram and that sort of thing. So that is a space for me when I can also do some writing. So I know there are other people who like to write late at night when maybe all the kids are in bed or something like that. I'm not a night owl at all. I tend to go to bed really early. So writing in the morning works for me, but just find that quiet space in the day. Maybe it's your lunch hour or something, and just make it a practice. It doesn't have to be every day, but make it a practice that often you sit down and write. So I do tend to write in the morning, like I said, but sometimes it can be a little difficult because my brain's not exactly engaged and I know that what I'm writing isn't all that great. So to keep myself actually writing the draft of what I'm writing or editing the book that I'm editing, I will just do something. So if that means writing about the scene that I'm going to write, then I'll do that. If it means just writing whatever comes to mind and putting in some placeholders like bracketed notes, say something here about the weather if I haven't decided what the weather is going to be, or a blank for a name so I don't get down that rabbit hole of trying to name a new character. That will just keep me going and actually making progress instead of getting stuck in a morass of details if my mind's not quite all there. The next thing that I find is helpful to me is to think about my story. So if I'm driving, for instance, I'll think about the characters and the plot, or if I'm making dinner. And that way, when I actually sit down to write, half the work is already done because I have been thinking about the story all along, and I don't need to sit there for quite as much time thinking through, okay, so then what happens next, or what is this character thinking, or whatever it is, because I have been already doing some of that background work in my normal life. And you can do that just in those tiny moments in the day that aren't really free time, but your mind is free to think about what it wants to think about. You're doing laundry or whatever. The next recommendation that I have for you, and I think most writers already do this, but in case you don't, is to carry a notebook with you. I tend to keep a notebook. This is my notebook right now. So it's pretty dorky, of course, but I absolutely love it. And I just stick this in my purse and have it to take around with me. So if I have a moment when I'm meeting somebody for lunch and they get there after I do, then there are a few minutes for me to make some notes, either on the story or on marketing or whatever it is. Just a few weeks ago, I drove up to this mountain town with my roommate, and unfortunately she broke her arm right away. It was quite the unfortunate incident, so I needed to take her to the hospital, and I had a few hours while she was getting her arm treated. She's much better now, if you're wondering. But I had a few hours of downtime, and I didn't have a phone charger or anything with me, and it was quite a drive, so I was glad that I didn't have to use my phone or just kind of wander around the hospital, but I could write a scene, which is what I did in this very notebook about my upcoming story. So I had that time and I had the notebook and I was ready for any unexpected free time that I was presented with. So that's one of the reasons why I think carrying a notebook is such a good idea. Not just to your computer, but actually longhand some things. So after, besides that, one other trick that a lot of people use, and I use this especially when I'm feeling less than motivated, but I know that I really want to get something done, is writing sprints. I've mentioned this before in an earlier video, how to overcome writer's block. But writing sprints are pretty much just what they sound like. You set a timer and you just go. You continuously write starting from when that timer begins. And it can be something that's already built into your daily life. Let's say that you have something in the oven, for instance, and it takes 20 minutes. Then instead of just waiting for that timer to go off, sit down and sprint as much as you can in that 20 minutes. 20 minutes is not a lot of free time. I think most people can find in their day somewhere that 20 minutes to just get maybe 150 words down or 300 words down, or however much you can do in 20 minutes. It really varies, but it doesn't matter how fast you are, as long as you're getting something down. That is the key. Writing sprints, some people like to do writing sprints with other people. So I know that there are some author tubers on YouTube, and there's some Facebook groups where people will do writing sprints, let's say every Thursday night, all together. So it's kind of a group thing. And for, I don't know, I haven't participated in these, but I follow some of these people. I just have other things going on Thursday nights. You can join them, and then they'll do these half-an-hour sprints, and then they'll take a break, maybe they'll talk or message back and forth, and then they'll do another half-an-hour sprint or something like that. So if you want some more accountability, that would be a great way to go. As far as accountability goes, if you are able to, I would also suggest that you join some sort of writing community, which I'd heard as advice for a while. And I thought, well, where do you find a writing community? If you don't already have one built in, if you don't have writer friends, how do you find these people? Well, there are a few ways that you can find them. You can go to Facebook groups. There are lots of Facebook writer groups that you can join. I actually found my writing group, which I love. It's small but mighty, at a writing conference. So last year in April, I went to the one and only writing conference that I've been to, but I talked to a lot of individuals and made some friends basically, and we formed this little group that still meets about once every 2 weeks to share our stories, and that's another way that I can just be held accountable with my writing and continue to improve and have something to bring to the table there. The last suggestion that I would make is that you download some kind of habit tracker. I use the app called Strides, and it's really fantastic because you can set different habit goals, and you can decide on the type of goal. So for instance, for my Firian Rising sequel, which is the WIP I'm working on, I want to write a certain number of words by this time in the summer. And so I put that in as a goal, and every day I put in the number of words that I write. And very often that is 0 words, but sometimes I get on a roll and I'm able to write every day for a week or 2 weeks, and then I can actually see a graph of all those words building up to the ultimate number that I'm shooting for. And there's a calendar sort of thing at the top. I'm going to show you a screenshot in a second. But there's a calendar feature at the top where you can see, okay, here's the amount of time that you've given yourself. Here is what it takes to be on track. And if you're on track or over, then the bar as it moves across will be green. And if you are under, then it'll be red. So that's another way that I want to be able to put numbers into that habit tracker. So that's another great way to keep yourself motivated if you're at all like me and you like that sort of checklist style of getting things done or hitting a goal. Just last note on this. I know that there are some times when you are legitimately too busy to write. Maybe your kids are sick, or it's one of a time at work when you have a big project due. I have these papers that I need to grade or whatever. I totally get it. There are times when it is legitimately too much to ask to add something else to your plate. I would just say that if you want to write, you'll make time when you can make time. But if there are a few days or even a couple weeks when you can't, you just don't have the mental energy or the actual time, and you just need all that time for sleep when you're not actually working or doing those other things, give yourself some grace. It's okay. It's okay not to write every single day. It's a lot to ask somebody to do. If you can, great. But if you can't, don't beat yourself up. Just take the time that you need. And then when you have that time, once again, once you have the mental space and you are a little bit more freed up, then you'll make the time again and you will continue to write. So that's all I have for you today. I hope that these tips were helpful. I know that there are a lot of videos that are kind of like this floating around on YouTube, and I'd suggest that you watch those as well. But these are some of the things that I have found to be the most helpful. So like this video if you like it. If you have any questions at all, please do put those in the comments, and I will see you next week.